Hello and welcome to the Tennessee Informer. Thank you all for being with us. As many of you know, today is President's Day. President's Day originally began in the 1880s as a celebration of George Washington's birthday, which was on February 22nd. Then in 1968, Congress passed the Uniform Monday Holiday Act into law, making Monday as the day for most federal holidays and shifted Washington's birthday to include Lincoln's on the same day. And so President's Day was born in 1968. Prior to that, Lincoln's birthday, which was actually February 12th, was celebrated in only a handful of states, but it was certainly not a federal holiday. George Washington not only played an indispensable role towards our victory in the War for Independence, but was elected as our very first president, serving 2 terms. He is known as the father of our country, and the republic he helped create was clearly a voluntary union of sovereign states that delegated limited powers to a federal government. Ironically, on President's Day, we are also forced to remember the birthday of Lincoln, who is often celebrated for saving the Union and is consistently listed by historians as one of our greatest presidents. But is that really true? How accurate is it? How does the Union saved by Lincoln compare to the one that Washington believed in and helped create? Was Lincoln really a great president that deserves our admiration? And what did he really save? Our guest today is Walter D. Kennedy, Commander-in-Chief of the Sons of Confederate Veterans and co-author of The South Was Right and numerous other books about the war between the states. He'll be joining us in just a few minutes today to help dispel the many myths of Lincoln with some cold, hard facts that you will not be taught by our politically correct education system or the many biased historians that push the stinking Lincoln martyred hero mythology. But first, a word from our sponsor, LifeWave, a unique product that uses light reflection to activate the body's own natural energy, supporting healing, improving performance, and combating aging without drugs or stimulants. Check it out, and we'll be right back with our guest, Walter Kennedy.
Light, the energy of life itself. Since the beginning of time, light has sustained us, fueled our growth, and shaped the world. Even Einstein recognized that everything we are is made of light. But what if we could harness the light within us, not just to live, but to renew, restore, and rejuvenate? Introducing LifeWave X39, the first product in the world that activates stem cells using our body's own light. Backed by clinical research, multiple patents, and over 10 years of stem cell research, a revolutionary wearable light technology that unlocks the power of activating our own stem cells with a single, safe, affordable, non-transdermal patch that puts you back in control of how you look, feel, and perform. Unlike drugs or chemicals, X39 works naturally, awakening your body's ability to heal and thrive. It's time to unlock your full potential, restore your vitality, and embrace a healthier, more vibrant you.
Welcome back. And now let's welcome to the program Walter D. Kennedy. Walter, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
I am doing great for an old boy from Louisiana, and please call me Donnie. I'm Walter D. Donnie Kennedy, and all my friends call me Donnie, so please feel free to call me Donnie.
Donnie it is. Well, before we get started, I just want to say that I realize some watching might say, well, it's obvious that Mr. Kennedy is biased on this issue and that anything you say is suspect. But I know that you can back up whatever you say with historical proof that they can look up for themselves. The lies we have been told in this country didn't start in the 1960s, and I'm honored to have you on the show today.
Thank you a lot. I appreciate it. And that is why Ron and I, in every book we write, we have more footnotes. And I want to just explain to folks, footnotes does not prove what I'm saying is correct. It's proven that what I am saying, you can go look at it and see, did he quote or cite that individual correctly? So footnotes gives you the background to go back and check me out. And I have challenged people from the beginning, check me out. If I'm wrong, let me know. I'll be glad to change my opinion if you can show me I'm wrong. But so far, after writing probably close to 200,000 copies of books, I have not had anybody. I think two times I had some mistakes on some battles that I misquoted when they were fought or something of that nature. But that is it. And when it comes to Lincoln, hey, I've got it well documented on what that man did to America.
Great. Well, hey, let's get started. And once again, thank you for being here. So we've got some questions, and
Yes, sir.
I've added a couple too, and they're no brainers really. But anyway, most people view Lincoln as America's most important president. Yet you and the SCV, that's the Sons of Confederate Veterans, often refer to Lincoln as a tyrant. Why is that?
Well, first of all, let's be clear. Lincoln is probably the most important president post Appomattox. He is the one that destroyed the original Union as created and given to us by our founding fathers. You hit the nail square on the head with your opening comments talking about the Union prior to Lincoln, the Union that George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, our founding fathers gave us was a union of free people in sovereign states. These states created the federal government to be our agent, to do for us things that we have granted to them the authority to do. We did not create a lord and master to ride over us. Today, real states' rights are gone. What we have today, post Appomattox, thank you, Mr. Lincoln, the Radical Republican Party, this is the ones that created this. What we have today is state privileges. The states have the privilege to doing whatever the federal government allows them. So therefore, we have a different government post Appomattox, post Abraham Lincoln, post the Republican Party. They're the ones that destroyed the original Union. Now, as far as a tyrant, yes, you could go back and look at the things that Abraham Lincoln did, and they were tyrannical. Everything from shutting down newspapers that he did not agree with, opening people's mails regardless, imprisoning his political opponents, people that was speaking out against him, throw them into prison, imprisoning also the legislators of Maryland he was afraid that they were going to secede from the Union. So what did he do? He sent troops in there, and he absolutely, through the military police, jailed them. He jailed the grandson of Francis Scott Key, the man who wrote the Star Spangled Banner, because this gentleman was from Maryland. He was an editor of a newspaper, and he was editorializing not in favor of secession, but against using troops to force sovereign states, people in the sovereign states, to be in a union that they did not want to be a part of. Because, just like he said, if you believe the Declaration of Independence, the only legitimate government that exists here in these United States is the one based on consent. Bloody bayonets are not the instruments of consent. So today we live in a government, a federal government, that is pinned together at the point of bloody bayonets. If you read the Declaration of Independence, you'll notice that that type of government is called a tyrannical government. So therefore, we consider Abraham Lincoln America's greatest tyrant.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people don't know what he did in Maryland. And in fact, he sent troops early on into Kentucky because he was afraid they would secede as well.
In Missouri.
Yeah. So he was proactive on preventing the legislators from making a decision one way or the other in those states.
Right.
Yeah. So it's really not accurate. I guess you can say he technically saved the Union, but he saved a completely different Union, right?
So look, he did not save the Union, he destroyed the Union. Let's think of it like this. My wife and I are in a marital union. Now that union is permanent as long as those vows that we have made to each other are maintained. But if those are broken, then guess what? The union no longer exists. If she decides to leave me because I'm an abusive husband and I grab her by the hair of the head and drag her back in the house and beat her up and lock her up and tell her she can't leave the house anymore, have I saved the marital union? Of course not. I have created a tyrannical situation because a marital union exists because of mutual respect and love. That's what this union was held together. And I know that because I can go to Chancellor James Kent from New York in his study of the U.S. Constitution and international law. He plainly stated that the Union was held together by the mutual benefit and goodwill of the parts. Mutual benefit and goodwill, not bloody bayonets, is what holds the Union, original Union, together. That is not what held the Union together post-Lincoln, post-radical republicanism.
You know, a lot of people give President Buchanan a lot of flack. They make it sound like, well, he sat around and did nothing for 4 months. Well, there was a reason he did nothing. Even though he didn't agree with secession, he also realized he did not have any authority in the Constitution to force those states back into the Union.
Absolutely. He was probably a great president, probably one of the last great presidents we had in that era. And as you said, he was opposed to secession. So was Robert E. Lee. So was Jefferson Davis. People don't realize Jefferson Davis fought against the concept of secession until when? Until Lincoln was elected and you had a minority party that was going to misuse and treat the South as really enslaved property of the North. And then they had to leave. When did Arkansas, Virginia, North Carolina, and the other border states, when did they secede? They seceded when Lincoln called troops to invade sovereign states to force them back into the Union. And they said, no, you can't do this. Arkansas was one of the strongest pro-Union southern states at the time until Lincoln said, okay, Arkansas, we need you to give us X number of troops to invade your brothers and sisters in the southern states who have seceded. And Arkansas said, no way. Rather than to send troops, we will join the Confederacy because we do not want to live in a tyrannical nation where the central government can invade the peoples of a sovereign state and force them to act against their will. Remember, the uniqueness of these United States is that we live in a government where we tell the government what to do. The government doesn't tell us what to do. And that's what made these United States of America such a unique system of government. Read the Declaration of Independence. It clearly states that a free people have an unalienable right to alter or abolish any government that does not fit their needs and to establish a new government more to their liking. That's exactly what our colonial fathers did in 1776. That's what our Confederate forefathers did in 1861.
Yeah, and a lot of them were either the sons of or certainly the grandsons of the founders.
Right.
Another thing, okay, so the 75,000 troops, that was after Fort Sumter. But, you know, a lot of people don't know, nobody was killed at Fort Sumter except for, I think, 2 people, and not to downplay it, but 2 people during the surrender ceremony.
I thought it was 1 person. It may have been 2, but I thought it was 1.
You're probably right. I'm going to defer to you. I think there's probably 1 killed and 1 wounded, something like that.
Yeah. Yes, right. And I have so many people doing interviews. They say, well, it's your Southerners' fault because you fired the first shot, and you fired the first shot, you caused the war. Well, I quickly remind them who fired the first shot in World War II in Pearl Harbor. It was the United States of America. The USS Ward sunk a Japanese sub and killed those people before any aggressive action was taken against the United States. So in theory, the United States is at fault for starting World War II if you say the South is at fault for starting the war by firing on Fort Sumter. So That's something that a lot of people will try to pull on you, but it's absolutely incorrect. According to international law, it is not the one who fires the first shot that causes a war to be fought. It is the one who makes the firing of that first shot necessary.
Right.
And that's the case of the USS Ward at Pearl Harbor, and that's the case of the Confederate States of America in Charleston Harbor.
Yeah. And I think Lincoln was so determined to have this war, and there's a lot of evidence of that. We can talk about that some, that if it hadn't been at Sumter, it would have been somewhere else. Sumter was probably the most convenient one, but it would have been somewhere else.
Absolutely. He needed to galvanize public opinion. What most people don't realize is that Lincoln was elected with only 39% of the popular vote. Now, just think about that. If the past president had been elected with only 39% of the popular vote, and he started doing some things that people didn't like, what chance would he have to stay in office? So what Lincoln needed more than anything else was something to galvanize Northern public opinion against the Confederacy. And so what he did was go ahead and take Fort Sumter and try to reinforce it, because he knew if you try to reinforce it, and he sent troops, he sent naval vessels and troops to retake Fort Sumter, and he knew the Confederacy would have to fire on those ships and troops, or else they would lose that fort. And they couldn't lose that fort. It was in the center of Charleston Harbor, about the second most important city at that time of the Confederacy, New Orleans being number one.
And I think most people on his staff, except maybe one or two, urged him not to do this. Do not try to resupply. If you do that, you're going to have a war. And,
Exactly.
And he ignored it.